Backus was the first of the Backus children to be born here. Everybody talks about Beanie Backus, Bean Pop. The real truth, Alan, is he was nicknamed by a family member Bean Pop. And his two brothers and sisters were also nicknamed. Bean Pop had nothing to do with him eating beans or he was a string bean. That was his nickname. In the 20s, it was very popular to change the name to an IE. That's when he became Beanie. Okay? His parents divorced when he was 4 years old. Obviously, they couldn't grow pineapples, but his father was very good around boats and sailmaking, and he opened up a boat repair station. And Backus helped. But at the age of 4, his folks divorced, and he was a sickly child. And his mother said, you know, he's got talent, and even at 4 years old, he's sketching. I'm going to get him some watercolors. And that's how he got started. He was doing watercolors, and he never graduated high school. He decided, his uncle said, look, I can't send you to art school. I can send you to Parsons for 2 summers in 1924 and 25. He goes to Parsons, comes back. He still needs to make a living. He has to help support his mother with his brother and sisters. And he works at a movie theater, designing, painting, the drapes. He was doing whatever he could do. But on the side, at the Sunrise Theater in Fort Pierce, he was painting. In 1929, we have the Depression. And he's still painting, but really nobody knows who he is. A woman by the name of Dorothy Beanie Palmer lived in Fort Pierce and admired his work. Now, if anybody who's ever used with crayons, what's the name of the company? Beanie Smith. She was the heiress to the Beanie Smith crayon company. And she said, I'm going to take you to places you've never been to before. We're going to have exhibitions. Right? First exhibition, 1931, sells 5 paintings at $20 a piece. He's doing great. 1936, he does an exhibition in Palm Beach, and he wins the Bemis Award. Who the heck is Bemis? Bemis was an executive with the Florida Coast Railway. He got a prize. He got subsequent prizes in 37 and 38, and in 39, IBM Corporation bought his painting called East of Eden, beautiful painting, which was part of the IBM exhibition at the New York World's Fair. So now he's going places, but he's still a regional artist. Pearl Harbor starts. He enlisted in the Navy at the age of 36 years old. He is assigned to the USS Hermitage. What is that? They were stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, but they were troop transport carriers. They would go to the Pacific. He would paint in the Pacific because his captain, Captain Townsend, said, look, I'm a sculptor, I love art, you can do that, I'll get you the supplies. And he painted Bora Bora, Tahiti, and Guam, and then the boat turned around and went to Europe. And if you go in the exhibition, you'll see a painting of Normandy, unfortunately bombed out that the Backus painted in 44. A very, very wonderful painting. So he serves. He gets out of the Navy in 46. Now what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm still painting in Palm Beach and Jupiter and Stewart and Melbourne. He realizes the real market's Miami, Coral Gables. That's where the market is. That's where the money's going to be.
Backus didn't just paint Florida. He opened his studio to young, ambitious artists during a segregated era. His open-door mentorship became the spark that ignited the Florida Highwaymen.
Her name was Zenobia Jefferson. Obviously, Fort Pierce was segregated. He said, look, Mr. Backus, I know you'll get involved with the young folks, but I have this young man, his name is Alfred here, and he would love to learn how to paint the way you paint. He said, look, bring him around. I teach class to the white kids on Saturday mornings. He can't sit there with them, but he'll grab a broom and he'll sweep around, and after the kids leave, I'll show him techniques. At that point, he was painting black Jesus and black subjects, and Backus said, if you want to sell these things commercially, they can't be black subjects. They can be, but later on he changed. He said, I'll teach you how to paint. Alfred Hare in turn goes back to 3 other artists, Harold Newton, Sam Newton, Roy McClendon, and says, look, stop what you're doing. We're not painting the right things. Mr. Backus says we need to paint that. This is an Alfred Hare right here. I digress. I know this is about Backus. But this is an original Alfred Hare painting done on an Upson board. What is Upson board? Before drywall that we know it today, they used Upson. I believe until about 87 or 86. But the frame was made from crown molding. He sprayed the frame, and all of a sudden, they're starting to sell. Now, these were migrant fruit pickers. They were making $35, $40 a month. All of a sudden, the first 3, then another 5, the other 6, 7, and 8. Well, how do you sell them? Well, you sell them because you had Al Black. Who was Al Black? Al Black was the salesman. Everybody needs a salesman. They dressed him up in a black suit, chipped in and bought a 46 caddy for him, and they were paid all night long, and then the next morning Al would go up and down the highway. Thus, the name, the Highwaymen. There were 26 in total. There are only 2 of them still alive. And there are hundreds and hundreds of collectors for the Highwaymen. And later on, they decided they would paint on what they call masonite. Now, one thing about Mr. Black, he got into a little trouble. He went to prison. He found religion. If you look at the paintings, there are 3 birds. That's the Holy Trinity. He just passed away last April. There are probably a lot of people here that collect Al Black. But anyway, I digress. So now, he's feeling back. We're going back to Backus. In 1957, he says, I got to get out of here. I need to get my head on my shoulders. I'm going to go to Haiti and paint. Goes to Haiti, goes to Cap Haitian. The poverty is just too much for him after 2 months. He says, I can't be here. I'm going to go to Jamaica. Now, if you want to see some wonderful Jamaican Backus, you go back into that exhibit and see some wonderful Backuses. A lot of them are Royal Point Siennas. They're lush. They're beautiful, beautiful paintings. He was there in a town called Port Antonio, which is on the north coast. He painted there until Michael Manley, who had communist leanings, became the premier, and he says, I gotta get out. And after Manley left, he went back and forth. But some of the paintings that Backus did in Jamaica are just wonderful. I forgot to mention, in 1950, he marries. On his honeymoon, he's painting Bahamas. So he's painting all over. Anyway, to make a long story short, he paints the Jamaican work. He builds a studio there, and he went back and forth. And he did that up until 3 or 4 years before he died.